Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, want to begin the lesson by saying Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai. Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai. All honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakar Kadash. Double honors to the apostles, elders, and teachers at Great Millstone for teaching me this 100% truth about our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai Mashiach, and the true reason why he's coming back, which is to save the elect remnant of the house of Israel from their enemies and those that hate them, and to take over the earth and universe, which was given to him by the mighty Yahweh himself, the Ancient of Days, wherein our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai Mashiach, will establish righteousness throughout the whole earth and universe forever under the kingdom of the heaven of the Israelites. Shalom, Akim and Akwaf. We one day closer to the kingdom. This is your brother Hadab Yarbad, back with a quick lesson before we do camp today, because I'm going to bring this up at camp. The actions of these Amalekites in our homeland, the unrecognized state of Israel, and the Amalekites and the rest of the Edomites that's over here in Babylon the Great, aka America. So first, let's get the fair use out the way. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Now, let's get to the scriptures. Now, what I'm going to do is read a couple of scriptures and explain to you how this fits the modern day so-called white man. We've already been given the information. History's coming out. Like it reads, and let me just get it right quick, Shalaki. I think it's Luke 12. Yeah, I'm going to keep it in NLT because I want to read Habakkuk 2 from out the NLT. I just did a lesson the other day, the rules, and I read Habakkuk 2 out of the KJV, but I wanted to read it in the NLT and I didn't, so Shalaki for that. So this is just an extension of that, the rules that's what's going on. They are currently, as General Wesley Clark said, look him up, taking over the Middle East. They just call it now the Greater Israel Project, the Greater Israeli Project, say it like that, right? Well, they want to take down Sudan, Libya, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Iran, right? In another country I'm forgetting. But if you trip off what's been going on around the world in these past 10 to 14 years, or since 9/11, that's what they've been doing. But they've been using the Israelis to do it, right? They got the American public thinking that Netanyahu and the government of the Israelis is at odds with the Americans. But yet, like I've been saying, the Americans still supply them with weapons. So Luke 12:2, the time is coming when everything is covered up, Shalakia. The time is coming when everything that is covered up will be revealed, and all that is secret will be made known to all, right? Now let's go back to Habakkuk, because there's new developments, man. Every day, same for spewing is on the glory of these Edomites, especially these Amalekites. So you will not be surprised or shocked or feel some kind of way emotionally when the Lord destroys these people. Because as you can see, they commit an open genocide. Now they putting concentration camps over there. They already been having them occupied since 1948. 1967, they did the West Bank, right? So we're going to read a couple of articles. And then we're going to play some podcasts. I got 4 different clips that I'm going to play, right? And we'll continue it in camp, right? Habakkuk 2:2, NLT. Then Yahweh said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets so that a runner can carry the correct message to others. That's what we're doing, the men of the Lord. Standing out on the highways and byways, doing lessons on YouTube and other various platforms to let our people know that these Edomites, the wicked, that control this earth are going down. Right? The vision is for a future time. This is the time we're in right now. It describes the end. The end of what? This age. The end of Esau, Edom ruling the earth. The so-called modern-day white man. And it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently. For it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. Look at the proud. Who the most proudest nation of people on this earth? The Edomites, the modern-day white man. Donald J. Trump, the president, the king over her in Babylon the Great, a.k.a. America. You got Merz over in Germany. Netanyahu in the unrecognized state of Israel. Macron in France, and whoever the leader is in Great Britain, his name escapes me right now. Look at they proud. They proud. Look at the proud. They trust in themselves, and their lives are crooked. But the righteous will live by their faithfulness to the Most High Power. Now the Edomites were made, programmed by the Most High Power, the Almighty Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, to be wicked. You cannot make straight what the Lord have made crooked. And he have programmed the Israelites, the modern day so-called African Americans, Native Americans, and Latinos to be righteous. We the only ones that can be righteous. But yet you got our nation, 2/3 of them that love wickedness. Right? So the elect, but the righteous will live by their faithfulness to the Most High Power. Now let's get into this. We're going to read this because that's what they're doing. They're clearing out the people of Palestine in all ways, shapes, form, and fashion. Through military campaign. They starving them out with famine by limiting their aid. They cut off the water supply, electricity. They're trying to displace over 2 million Palestinians. Wealth, verse 5, wealth is treacherous, and the arrogant are never at rest. They open their mouths as wide as the grave, and like death, they are never satisfied. Now, they're saying all this is because of the attack that Hamas did on them. Hamas is the militant group with the Palestinians that they did on them on October 7th, 2023, where over 1,200 Israelis were killed and over 250 kidnapped. Since then, they have killed over 100,000 Palestinians, along with journalists, aid workers, indiscriminately, starving them out. Now they're over in the West Bank, occupying their area. I got an article on that. Death is nothing to them. But yet, if you touch one of them, say anything wrong with one of the Israelis, you are deemed anti-Semitic and subject to being blackballed in society, placed into the court system, right? Because they got laws. So they get to go around terrorizing people indiscriminately. They openly commit genocide. Now they're saying openly they're going to have concentration camps. Germany said, oh man, we can't let y'all do that. We're going to block aid to y'all because y'all not letting aid into them. So they said, you're going to hear it in the podcast. We're going to give them a limited amount of aid so Germany and America can keep funding us. Right? And mind you now, look at the history. Germany is the beginning. They the first ones to use concentration camps in Africa. Not during World War II, before that. But all you're supposed to remember is what happened during World War II. You better start thinking about it, Israel. They opened their mouths as wide as the grave, and like death, they are never satisfied. In their greed, they have gathered up many nations and swallowed many peoples. The Western hegemony, all countries ran by Edomites, modern-day white men, have been around this earth since 1492, terrorizing people, taking land, killing people, forcing them to slavery, oppressing them, right? Guess what the Lord's going to do? But soon their captors will taunt them. They will mock them, saying, what sorrow awaits you thieves? Now you will get what you deserve. You become rich by extortion. But how much longer can this go on? Suddenly your debtors will take action. Everybody right now is dropping $1. Ain't getting rid of them little bond treasuries today that sold because they over $30-something trillion in debt. Suddenly your debtors will take action. They will turn on you and take all you have, while you stand trembling and helpless, because you have plundered many nations. Now all the survivors will plunder you. You committed committed murder throughout the countryside and filled the towns with violence. That's what the Edomites do, the modern-day white man. What sorrow, or I'm dropped down to 12, what sorrow awaits you who build cities with money gained through murder and corruption? Right? The U.S. has provided the Israeli government with 90,000 tons of military weapons since October 7, 2023. Now, let me get this right quick, and I'm going to read a couple of articles, and then we're going to play these. We're going to play these newscasts. Right? Because all this is the Lord's plan. He's drawing all these countries to the land of Jehoshaphat. Let me show it. Let me get it in KJV. I'm just going to show it. Right? The nations will be judged. Read Joel, 3rd chapter. You can start at 2. I'm just showing it to you. Right? For lack of time. Now, I'm going to read this in the NLT. Micah 2 and 1. Judgment against wealthy oppressors. The elite that run this earth, the majority of them are Edomites. We're going to say 95% Edomites. And out of 95%, Amalek is the head tribe out of it. Judgment against wealthy oppressors. What sorrow awaits you who lie awake at night thinking of evil plans? We're going to say we're going to get them limited aid. And then when they try to come get the aid, we're going to fuck them up. We're going to say we're trying to get peace with them. That we have, Netanyahu going to say we got a peace deal. He accepted the U.S. peace deal. But yeah, we still killing them every day. And now we occupying the West Bank. Right? You rise at dawn and hurry to carry them out. Simply because you have the power to do so. And if you say anything against them, they got laws that will make you the villain. Right? Just trip off of it. When you want a piece of land, you find a way to seize it. I'm going to read the article. When you want someone's house, you take it by fraud and violence. You cheat a man of his property, stealing his family's heritage. But this is what Yahweh says. I will reward your evil with evil. Because when you hear this podcast, they're going to continue to say, especially the last one, this is outright evil. By who these Amalekites? What does it say in 1 Maccabees? When the 4 generals took over the known earth, evils were multiplied. What does it say in Job? The earth is given to the hand of the wicked. And who is the wicked? The modern day so-called white man. If you can't see that by now, your conscience has been seared with a hot iron by the Lord, and judgment, a bad judgment, awaits you. But this is what Yahweh says. I will reward your evil with evil. You won't be able to pull your neck out of the noose. You will no longer walk around proudly, for it will be a terrible time. And that day your enemies will make fun of you by singing this song of despair about you. We are finished, completely ruined. The Most High Power has confiscated our land, taken it from us. He has given our fields to those who betrayed us. Yeah. That's why it also reads in the scriptures, as they have done, it shall be done unto them. As you have done, it shall be done unto thee. Right. Now let's get a couple of these articles. Look at this. U.S. sending more than a plane load of weapons every day. In the same week, Israel marked 600 days since the deadly October 7, 2023 attacks. The United States sent the 800th plane load of weapons and munitions to the Israel Defense Forces. Right? I'm going to drop down, because this has already been stated in the rules lesson I did. Israel Ministry of Defense said that the more than 90,000 tons of equipment and supplies delivered from the United States since the start of the war include armored vehicles, munitions, ammunition, personal protection gear, and medical equipment. Right? Now, let's get this article. Israel announces new West Bank settlements despite sanctions threats. So you got the other nations faking like they're going to threaten them. Right? We ain't going to give y'all no more aid. We ain't doing this or that for y'all. But guess what's going on the whole time? They steady taking land and moving on with their plan. And they just fired on Lebanon again, too. Israel, look at the summary. Israel approves 22 new settlements in the West Bank. Smarters announces. They just taking these people's shit. European countries threaten sanctions over settlement expansion in occupied territory. They just threaten it. They ain't going to do nothing. Palestinian Authority Hamas condemns Israel's decision. Now, the only people that's stepping up for the people of Palestine or the people that live in Yemen, known as Ansarallah, who the Western media calls the Houthis, they the only ones supporting these people, right? And let's get one more article. Israel, look at this. Israeli government hits back as international pressure over Gaza mounts. Now, all these people are upset, and what they saying, they put it back on them. So they're talking to the Western nations, right? On Wednesday, Italy joined a growing list of European countries that have traditionally held back from criticizing Israel and demanding an end to the war after Germany stepped up its language against the Israeli campaign earlier in the week. And they already going to retract it because all they got to do is let them get a little aid, and then we're going to kill people. And then they're going to give us aid again. You're going to hear them. Their own tongues have filed upon themselves. Psalm 64. All these Edomites do is lie. Psalms 58 and 3. And with that being said, fair use is in full effect. Fair use is in full effect. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Fair use is in full effect. Shalom, Israel. Till we talk again later at camp.
ما يتعلق بالعدوان الإسرائيلي على مطار صنعاء هذا اليوم، والذي يأتي في سياق العدوان الإسرائيلي المستهدف لأمتنا في فلسطين، في لبنان، في سوريا، والهادف أيضا فيما يتعلق ببلدنا إلى الضغط على موقف شعبنا العزيز وموقف بلدنا المشرف في النصرة للشعب الفلسطيني المظلوم. مهما كان حجم العدوان الإسرائيلي ومهما تكرر، فهو لن يؤثر إطلاقا على موقف شعبنا العزيز في مناصرة الشعب الفلسطيني، لأن هذا واجب إسلامي ديني أخلاقي إنساني لا يمكن التفريط به.
There have been multiple explosions near a food distribution point opened by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in the center of Gaza Strip. It's after Israeli shots were fired near one of the aid points in the south on Wednesday. We're going to go to Tariq up on Zoom. He's joining us from Deir al-Bala in central Gaza. Tariq, what more do we know?
Well, Rob, what we do know so far is that since the early hours of this morning, civilians started to crowd in gathering areas and on all roads that are leading to the newly formed distribution point in the central areas of Gaza, run by Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has been the responsible body for distributing aid in Gaza over the past 4 days, backed full by the American administration and the Israeli side. We have heard just 30 minutes ago a huge explosion coming from the vicinity of Netzarim corridor, where civilians have been gathering there in order to get food parcels. Many of them managed, in fact, to get some food boxes and returned safe to their temporary shelters here in the central area, while others are still unable to get any food parcels because of the massive number of people. We are talking about thousands of people are right now located in Salah ad-Din Road, and they are waiting for permission to reach this area. But eyewitnesses confirmed that Israeli military tanks started to approach close to the crowds of people there and started to shoot at them, forcing hundreds to back to the central areas of Gaza without getting any kind of aid. So it's a very controversial manner by the Israeli military. At the same time, Israel says they are so keen to alleviate the current food crisis away from giving Hamas the opportunity to get aid. And when civilians started to move to the designated distribution points run by the American company, they started to shoot at them. Gaza's health ministry, in fact, reported that over the past 48 hours, 9 Palestinians were killed and over 60 others were wounded while they were trying to get aid from the designated distribution centers. This mechanism is completely failing to meet the wide-scale extensive demands of Gaza's population. The warnings made by UN agencies and other aid organizations were not only bureaucratic statements, they were emergency alarms, as without the full restoration of humanitarian corridors, the left of the blockades and the protection of aid workers and civilians alike, Gaza will continue to sink into further waves and waves of famine. And this has been the outcome of this restriction and the ongoing mechanism of aid distribution led by Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is merely and completely, by the way, triggering some sort of civil disorder in Gaza, as many reports also are coming from northern Gaza from our colleagues there, confirming that people started to move to the Netzarim corridor from the eastern end of Gaza City, and they have been shot by the Israeli military, and many of the aid has been looted by desperate families who have been completely unable to afford the minimal level of humanitarian basic necessities for their children.
Tariq, we're just looking at some of the pictures now that we've been getting in of the kind of explosion that has been happening. We've been seeing the clouds of smoke and dust that have been rising on the horizon. I appreciate, of course, that you're in Deir al-Bala outside the main hospital there. Is there any indication just how close that explosion happened to the distribution point and to the crowds of people who had been gathering?
It was very close. In fact, the explosion has rocked the entire vicinity of the Netzarim corridor. But families, we have been hearing from them that they are no longer fear of death because they are simply hungry. They say that we will go to the designated distribution points in order to get food supplies for our
Assalamu alaikum. The people of Yemen need your help right now. More than
I don't have the words for the pain this image brings. After 86 days of starvation, they are herding my people into cages like livestock for a meal. Concentration camps in broad daylight. The world watches, some cheer, most stay silent, but I hope Jews are feeling safe. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show, everybody. Keaton and Kurt in for Jimmy while he is on the road. So Benjamin Netanyahu had to essentially apologize to his own people for agreeing to allow a modicum of aid into Gaza in order to maintain support from the Western allies, because the optics of hundreds of thousands starving to death was just more than the Western allies could bear, or so we're told. So here he is explaining to his people how this is going to work. Notice they release the Hebrew language versions of these videos for the stuff that they really don't want the Americans to hear, and then it falls to an American outlet like Dropsite in this case to actually translate it. Sometimes he'll speak English, sometimes they'll put it out Hebrew with English subtitles, sometimes they'll just leave it in Hebrew. And that's this case. So Dropsite translated this. So here we go. Since the beginning of the war, we have said that to complete the victory, to defeat Hamas and free all our captives, two intertwined tasks, there is one essential condition. We must not reach a state of hunger, both practically and politically. They simply won't support us, and we won't be able to complete the mission of victory. Therefore, we decided to provide minimal aid during the war, and of course, we advanced in this way. And we discovered, of course, that Hamas is looting some of this aid. Therefore, we stopped the humanitarian aid, and together with our American friends, we decided to implement a different method. The method is distribution points secured by the IDF to prevent Hamas access, allowing American companies to distribute food and medicine aid to the population. It takes time. We are going to set up the first points in a few days and add more later. Unfortunately, to reach a situation where we have an area entirely controlled by the IDF and all the civilian population of Gaza can come there and receive aid while Hamas gets nothing. So that is the plan, according to Bibi Netanyahu. There's some more reporting on this. Sweeping overhaul of Gaza aid raises questions of morality and workability. This was 4 days ago, reported on May 24th. Last year, a group of former U.S. intelligence and defense officials and business executives working in close consultation with Israel prepared a proposal for supplying humanitarian aid to Gaza that would address Israeli government claims that assistance was being diverted by Hamas. In previously unreported internal documents, the group detailed a radically new and ambitious model. It envisioned the creation of an organization called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that would hire armed private contractors to provide logistics and security for a handful of aid distribution hubs to be built in southern Gaza. That's right.
How much you want to bet once the hubs are up and anybody who actually goes to those hubs, the idea is going to discover that some Hamases are hiding in those people and they're going to have to blow them up.
Well,
you want to put money on it?
Yep. And you could pretty much see the writing on the wall here. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Sonic meets Blackwater, right? Under the arrangement, which would replace existing aid distribution networks coordinated by the United Nations, Palestinian civilians would have to travel to the hubs and submit to identity checks to receive rations from non-governmental organizations, NGOs. Eventually, according to the plan, Palestinians would live in guarded compounds that would each house up to tens of thousands of non-combatants. Okay, so in plain English, they're describing concentration camps.
Right.
That is what they are writing about.
A reservation, let's call it.
Yes, a reservation. Yes. But as early as November, the documents showed the planners anticipated that the foundation could face potentially damaging questions from the public about its opaque origins, qualifications, and moral legitimacy. Those concerns about possible pushback now appear prescient. Oh, do they? With prominent humanitarian agencies and prospective donors balking, some senior officers in the Israeli military questioning the plan, and even some people who participated in the foundation's early planning distancing themselves from the project, citing moral qualms over the possibility that it would enable the forced displacement of Palestinians or misuse biometrics.
That's the big one right there. What was that stupid orb they wanted people to give their biometrics to from Sam Altman, I think, was putting it out. You get some free crypto, and you get your biometric scan. You know, all those 15-minute cities you heard about. Well, Gaza was a prototype of that. And this is they're going to experiment on them with tech. That's what they're going to do in the camps.
Oh, yeah. No, it's really, really terrifying stuff. The GHF's Gaza aid operation is expected to launch this coming week. Whether it succeeds and how it operates holds tremendous implications for the 2 million Palestinians who are sealed in the 140 square mile enclave and nearing the brink of famine, according to UN estimates. So let's see how it worked out. Well, that's about how it worked out. I don't have the words for this, for the pain this image brings me. Sorry. Can we put that back up? Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. I don't have the words for the pain this image brings. After 86 days of starvation, they are herding my people into cages like livestock for a meal. Concentration camps in broad daylight. The world watches, some cheer, most stay silent, but I hope Jews are feeling safe.
Maybe if you'd shut up.
Yeah. Max Blumenthal says this is the aid model apartheid Israel and the Zionist-controlled Trump administration have conceived to subvert the UN system. It requires Gaza residents to march miles across an active war zone, then be confined in a concentration camp as they wait for a meager supply of food. So don't forget, everybody, this is in Rafah, which is in the south. What has been their plan was to clear the north. So what they're doing is they're making everybody walk 10, 12 miles south of where they are so they can empty out the north. Oh, you want food? You're going to have to come south to get it. Why? So we could lock you in the south and claim the north for our own. So this is the aid operation. That's what I mean. This is just like diabolical evil. It's just like bone deep evil. It does not get more evil than this.
The Trail of Morals. It's like a Trail of Tears, but from the most moral army in the world.
Yes, the most moral Trail of Tears. Exactly. And just as Kurt predicted, U.S. aid workers flee the scene after they lost control of aid distribution, and Israeli forces open fire at the area in Rafah. Now, this is not my channel. I don't want to cause problems with YouTube, so we're not going to play the volume here. But what you're seeing is people fleeing at the sound of gunfire. So I can't play the gunshots for you here, but that's the visual of what's going on there. And some people were able to get their hands on some of the boxes of food after the chaos. So predictably horrible rollout, shall we say, of the new aid distribution. Israeli troops open fire as aid group loses control of distribution center. Israeli troops have opened fire near thousands of hungry Palestinians as a logistics group chosen by Israel to ship food into Gaza lost control of its distribution center on its second day of operations. An 11-week total siege and a continuing tight Israel blockade mean most people in Gaza are desperately hungry. Hundreds of thousands walked through an Israeli military lines to reach the new distribution center in Rafah on Tuesday. But the newly established Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was not prepared for them, and staff at one point were forced to abandon their posts. At one moment in the late afternoon, the volume of people at the SDS, Secure Distribution Center, not sure why it's not SDC, but whatever, was such that the GHF team fell back to allow a small number of Palestinians in Gaza to take aid safely and dissipate, the foundation said in a statement.
Wait, let me guess. They're getting bad information on numbers from the Israelis.
Well,
and the Israelis want that so that they can open fire.
I mean, this is what Norm Finkelstein said as part of that Piers Morgan interview and debate. He said it would go exactly like this. They're going to hand out a limited amount of aid. They're going to make the Palestinians come to them. They're going to claim that there are combatants in the crowd. They're going to claim there was a riot. And they're going to kill some of the crowd to intimidate the rest to go away. And they're going to hand out the minimum amount of aid that they possibly can, which is what Netanyahu told his people. Going back to the previous segment where we talked about the poll, where most Israelis think it's okay to just starve all of the Palestinians.
Right. So they're mad about this. They're mad
exactly.
that he gave them this
much. They're mad about this. The Israeli government had to come and smooth this over with their people. They had to basically come and apologize. They had to say, look, we know you guys aren't thrilled with aid going in, but if we don't let any aid in, the Germans aren't going to send us any more weapons, so we just have to let some aid in. But the goal is, of course, to minimize the amount of aid and maximize the terror inflicted on the Palestinians. It played out exactly as Norm said it would, exactly as he said it would.
Have you ever heard of...
This is Kraken, the easy way to start exploring crypto.
The evil... and I condemn him, don't worry, Vladimir Putin, ever doing anything like this. Because I don't remember ever, from all the invective again, I don't remember ever hearing anything like this.
Right. Yeah. No, that's true. Israeli tank fire and gunfire was heard, and a military helicopter fired flares, the Associated Press reported. At least 3 injured Palestinians were taken from the scene, one of them bleeding from a leg wound. The Israeli military said it fired warning shots near the compound to restore control. It was not immediately clear if there had been any injuries among the people trying to get food. Images shared on social media, which cannot be immediately verified, appeared to show people waiting in queues between wire fences, since was verified. That's the image that went viral that we showed you a few slides back. These were later partly torn down as people rushed into an open field where boxes were waiting. Some reportedly managed to obtain aid boxes with basic items, including sugar, flour, pasta, and tahini, but most left empty-handed. So let's hear what... Yeah, of course. So let's hear what the Matthew Miller of the Trump State Department has to say. So this is Tammy Bruce. So we all remember, the Fat Sagar videos and the Matthew Miller videos where they would get asked questions by the press. Well, here's the Trump version of that.
8,000 food boxes have been distributed so far. Each box feeds 5.5 people for 3.5 days, totaling 462,000 meals. And so those are the kinds of numbers, I think, as we're looking at what's important in moving that kind of aid through the area.
Right, but there was apparently some incidents today involving potentially shots being, at least warning shots being fired and hundreds.
Well, yes, Hamas still has weapons. Hamas is in a situation here where all of this could have stopped, of course. If
Hamas was not there. There were no Hamas lining up for food. There were no shots fired by any Palestinian at all. At all. According to even the Israeli government is not claiming that there were armed Palestinians who fired on the food envoy. Nobody's claiming that except your spokesperson for the Department of State.
They had released the hostages and put down their weapons, but they refused to do so. They've also rejected ceasefires. So that's without confirming what might be gossip or single reports. The fact of the matter is...
not gossip or single reports. There's multiple reports plus video.
Hamas has been opposed to this dynamic. They have attempted to stop the aid movement through Gaza to these distribution centers. They have failed. but they certainly tried. The bottom line is the real story here is that the aid is moving through, and in that kind of an environment, it's not surprising that there might be a few issues involved, but the good news is that those seeking to get aid to the people of Gaza, which is not Hamas, have succeeded.
And last one, really.
It has not succeeded. It has not succeeded. All the reports saying almost everybody left empty-handed after walking miles and miles and miles through an active war zone at tremendous personal risk to themselves, many of whom probably not going to be let back to the north, because that's the point of doing this, is to corral them all into the south. And she says, yeah, it was a success. See, this is what Bibi wanted. This is what he said. He said to his people, we have to do this so that the Americans will get off our ass, so the Germans will get off our ass. And if we make a show that we're trying to feed them, then we won't have any more problems.
Yeah, can't pay for their own murders. We got to do it.
Yeah, right, exactly.